What if 1,000 Huggy Wuggies tried to stop Mommy Longlegs in Poppy Playtime Chapter 2? Today we're pushing Poppy Playtime to its absolute limits, and we're adding tons and tons of Huggy Wuggies. Each of these Huggy Wuggies act like they're a stuffed toy. They're limp, they can be thrown around, and they just sort of pile up. So we can form piles and piles of Huggy Wuggies and basically form these giant walls. So we're going to be trying to stop Mommy Longlegs with Huggy Wuggies, but also we're going to be trying to stop the train with Huggy Wuggies. And of course, a big thank you to Omega. They created this mod, they worked with me to get this done, and it's really, really awesome. So a big thank you to them. But with that said, let's see what crazy things we can have happen. I hope you enjoy. So the first area we're going to tackle is actually that lever pull room that starts this big chase in Chapter 2. And I wanted to pick this room because Mommy Longlegs is actually hiding on the wall down the cliff beneath the lever. If we look beneath this giant gear, we're going to see Mommy Longlegs just down this cliff. So this cliff isn't actually really a cliff, it's actually a giant box. Now, if you fall down it, you do die, but it does have a bottom, which means we can fill this with Huggy Wuggies. And that's exactly what we're doing. We are spawning so many Huggy Wuggies in this pit, trying to fill it to its brim. It's like the Huggy Wuggies are water, and is slowly rising and overtaking Mommy Longlegs. And we just keep them coming. Now eventually, we do reach a point where this is completely filled. And taking our camera down below, we can see that Mommy Longlegs is kind of overrun. She's completely buried. So now we're going to throw the lever and see what happens. So we pull the lever, and Mommy Longlegs just tears through the Huggy Wuggies. There were honestly no challenge for her, which is honestly kind of surprising. She actually pushed up a bunch into the hallway and was trampling them as she was running towards me. I take off running because I know she's going to kill me, so I'm going to despawn her using the door trick right over here. And after she's despawned, I'm going to go back and check out the pit of Huggy Wuggies that is still there. So trying to get into the pit was a bit of a challenge, honestly, but I start snaking my way down into this giant horde of Huggy Wuggies, hoping that I can make it down into the darkness. And I was actually having trouble doing so I decided to enable a no clip and fly down below. And you can see this cube is filled to the max with Huggy Wuggies, but touching it, I instantly die. So now we're going to try this again, but in a room that's a bit more interesting. So going through the chase, you eventually come through this area that is a trench, and you fall down below and begins the sewer portion of the chase. But this room has some really interesting characteristics about it. For some reason, spawning a ragdoll like Huggy Wuggy causes them to flop around over and over again. It's kind of funny because they just non-stop bounce, and it's like there's a rave going on down below. So of course, I wanted to fill this section up with Huggy Wuggies, and that's exactly what I did. I basically turned it into a ball pit and then jumped down below because I wanted to see what happened when Mommy Longlegs was tearing through all these moving Huggy Wuggies. So I get about half full, jump down below, and Mommy Longlegs comes out, tramples to the Huggy Wuggies, and then jump scares me. But I want to do better, so we're going to fill this up even more. This time, the Huggy Wuggies bounce up so high that they're getting stuck on the walls up above. I start picking them off the wall and throwing them back down into the pit so we can have the maximum amount of Huggy Wuggies down below. And because there's so many, they kind of stopped hopping around as much because there's no space that isn't occupied by one of our blue fuzzy friends. And so I hop down below and trigger Mommy Longlegs. And honestly, it's really cool. She's like tunneling through this horde of Huggy Wuggies. And if we take the camera inside, we can kind of see her perspective and what she's going through. You can see Mommy Longlegs' face in this giant mass of blue fur. And I don't even know if she can see where she's going. It's quite funny. And as a last ditch effort, I turn on no clip so she can't kill me, but she gets me anyways. So I unfortunately die within this giant cloud of fuzzy Huggy Wuggies. But we can do more, and we certainly are. I'm going to fill up the giant chase hallway to the brim that leads to the grinder with Huggy Wuggies. And honestly, while adding all these Huggy Wuggies, my game starts to chug. My frame rate is certainly dropping because there are so many objects in this room that my computer is starting to have trouble keeping track of them all. And this honestly took 5 to 10 minutes to place all these different Huggy Wuggies. But I made sure it was full, and it looks glorious. In my mind at least, Mommy Longlegs is going to have quite a difficult time making it through this hallway. If everything works out like I'm imagining, Mommy Longlegs is going to cause a tidal wave of some sorts as she pushes through all these Huggy Wuggies. Opening the door and revealing the massive hallway of Huggy Wuggies was kind of cool, but now it's time to make our way to the end and hit that blue switch. And here we go. Shoot our blue hand out, and the chase sequence begins. And at first I don't see anything, but then I see some movement in the background. So I pause the game and freeze time, and take the camera to the end of the hallway. And I can see that the pile is certainly being pushed along the hallway, and I can see Mommy Longlegs forcing her way through the giant blue pile. so we get a side camera view and then I resume time. And you can see this blue tsunami making its way through this hallway. I try to find Mommy Longlegs' face within this crowd, and she's just completely covered. And she continues plowing through the Huggy Wuggies, making her way to the grinder. And she succeeds. She smashes her way through the Huggy Wuggies and starts automatically killing herself in the grinder as her beta animation plays. Poor Mommy couldn't see what she was running into. So I try my best to make it through this hallway myself, and I keep getting pushed around by so many of the Huggy Wuggies. I'm afraid I'm gonna get pushed out of bounds and die. Somehow I managed to climb on top of all of them and make my way to the grinder door. But navigating this hallway is a nightmare. But honestly, I go down it a couple times because it's just a lot of fun. It's like a giant ball pit of stuffed animals, and it's really hard to make your way through it. But now it's time to move on to something that has a little bit more horsepower than Mommy Longlegs. And so we're heading to the game station and prepping the train to hit some Huggy Wuggies. So first off, I add 3 Huggy Wuggies in front of the train. And each of these Huggy Wuggies are larger in size. We have a big one, a bigger one, and a massive, colossal Huggy Wuggy. I start the train, and as you can see, the first one gets pushed to the side. The second one gets tossed around a bit as it's eventually thrown to the side. But the colossal Huggy Wuggy puts up a good fight. It's so big, it can't be pushed to the side right away. The train pushes it for quite a while until we get to an area where the collision for the train tracks ceases to exist. Because of this, there is now more room, so the Huggy Wuggy gets tossed behind us. If we brighten things up, we can see the giant Huggy Wuggy is stuck between the 2 walls with his leg and his arm, but his torso and his head are out of bounds. But now it's time to tackle the one I'm most excited about, building a massive, massive pile of Huggy Wuggies. Thousands of Huggy Wuggies in front of the train. And so, I begin to spawn them in like crazy. Now, one of the problems I run into is, of course, that my game starts to chug because there are so many Huggy Wuggies here. Just turning and looking at them causes my game's frame rate to drop like 75%. But now that we have our pile built, it's time to start up the train and hit some Huggy Wuggies. The train starts moving, and I can see my frame rate slowly dropping as we get closer and closer to the Huggy Wuggies. And once we come around that corner, well, time starts to slow down quite a bit. But here we go, we are hitting the giant pile of Huggy Wuggies, and they are blasted to smithereens. The train is a true powerhouse because it did not struggle at all moving all these toys. If we take the camera back there and freeze time, we can see the aftermath of the train destroying the massive pile of these blue toys. All these Huggy Wuggies were thrown to the side, and they're completely broken. It's quite the sight. But as we resume time, we can see the train moving off into the distance, and like a wave of water, all the Huggy Wuggies flow back down to the tracks. And then of course, I have to clean up my mess, so I despawn all of them. But I hope you enjoyed all these weird science experiments with Huggy Wuggy. Subscribe now if you did, and I'll see you all soon in my next video. Cheers!